Ladies and gentlemen, big Herald news.
Welcome back to another episode of Big Hairy News. Chewie has just had the spinning wheel of death on his computer and he's just jumped out to reboot and he'll be back momentarily. So I even heard him. If we go 3, 2, 1, if you clap all the fairies up, is that right? You clap to bring the fairy back to life? There he is. Right there. Hey dude, how are you?
I am good. Computer being uncooperative, but yes, I am good.
So you've had to shut down your 412 tabs and get it all back under control, and
yeah, pretty much.
Good to know.
You know.
I do know. I'm not too bad tonight with my tabs. Hey, interesting chats coming up tonight. We are going to have a look at the latest 3 News poll. As you guys all know, we're very open about this. Polling kind of mid-cycle, the actual individual polls aren't necessarily all that interesting. We do often look at preferred Prime Minister and we do often look at the trends. And the trends of the last few polls have been, it actually almost hasn't been the left bloc getting stronger, Chewie, but it's definitely been the right bloc getting weaker. Because when you still look at a lot of those, say, past half dozen polls, even if Labour's been trending up a little bit, it still hasn't seemed to be quite enough to get them over that 50% threshold. Now, as I say that, I'm also needing to say we don't care about that 50% threshold because it's not election day, but looking at the trends. And there was one out today, TV3, Luxon taking a big hit in that preferred Prime Minister status, and just interesting look. We'll take an interesting look at that. Yes,
Did you see that other really weird survey that apparently Australians rate Luxon as the most trustworthy leader?
Oh, good God. No, I didn't see
And I'm
that
just
at all.
like, where are you getting that from? Like, it was just bananas.
We'll have to find that as we go through this well. Also, David Seymour, Chloe Swarbrick on Herald Now. Pardon me if yours says Gerald Now, because I made a misprint in some of the things. So Gerald Now is not a large man that they were sitting on. It was Herald Now. And yeah, just crazy. He is the acting Prime Minister at the moment. You would think if there was going to be any decorum picked up on or any way to reject the 9-year-old pissy little boy, it would be now. But no, indeed not. There was not. Let me say a huge thanks to Jeanette Saxby, to Princess Leia, the original, I think, Chew. I think we've got the Jedis are with us. To Ange, to LJP, to Keith at the Bay, who all became patrons over the last 10 days or so, and also Alison, who decided to up her patronage from, I think, a patron to a super patron. Thank you so much. We often tell you guys this, but it is absolutely true. It's the patrons that enable us to continue to do what we do. It's also the patrons, as I've said 3 or 4 times, that enable us to forward project what we're going to do. So when me and Chewie start to think about doing some live shows next year for the election, we look at the patrons to see if they can help us get to the places. We love our super chat. Thank you very much. You're all very generous, and the merch is great, but it's the regular $5, $15 a month givers that help us to look forward and go, hey, let's try and get the whole team to Waitangi, that kind of thing. Yeah. But Chewie, speaking of that, I've had a little bit of a change of heart. We had a bit of a special going on at the merch store this week, and it was buy a hoodie, get a t-shirt for 50% off. Yeah. Well, I've decided, because of Matariki and because people might be doing it tough, that I might change that for the rest of the week. Can you read that, Chewie? Is that too small for you to read? Can you read those words there out loud, or do I have to read it?
Buy any hoodie this week and you get a free tee.
Yeah.
That's
Free
right.
t-shirt.
Any hood is giving you 100% free t-shirt. Use the discount code Matariki to check out to get your free BHNT with any hoodie purchase. What a savings!
What a savings. So, as you know, hoodies are worth about 100, tees are worth about 50. So for the rest of this week, this goes till midnight Friday. We've decided to change it up. Any hoodie purchased, you can get yourself a free t-shirt. Just like that. Just use that code Matariki at the checkout. If, like I sent out 2 hoodies to someone today, if you were to buy 2 hoodies, you can get 2 free t-shirts. That's how it kind of works. bhnshop.nz. A hoodie this week will enable you to a free tee. I just thought we could have, like, New Year's, it's time for a bit of a gift, it's time for a present. We'll pass those around. Some other things we want to let you know. Oh, was that a noise? Was that something?
Yeah, I was just, look at you, old daddy fat pockets over there, giving away gifts.
Just like that, bro. Yeah. I won 25 million tonight, so I thought I'll give away some $50 t-shirts,
It's always going to be signs.
That's true. People who say I'd never tell anybody. Where did you get that brand new Porsche? Oh, it's it's a car, company car. Nothing to do with me. It's company car. One other thing that I want to let you know before we go and have a chat with Melanie Nelson about the regulatory standards bill. Tomorrow morning at about 10:50. There will be a short live stream on Locked Out. Oh, look at that. I'm going to be on Locked Out with Craig tomorrow. And that is going to be because the GDP numbers are out tomorrow. And there is some word that the government may be doing some celebrating tomorrow. But Craig has already kind of indicated, if that is the case, we do still want to definitely dive deeply into what does come out to see what narrative they're going to push versus what narrative might be the truth. So if you're around tomorrow morning between 10:30 and 11, the lockup lets out at about 10:45. So Craig will find a quiet space straight away. He'll come through and join up, and then I will do all the live streaming stuff on his show to let him talk to you about and it'll probably be the first place in the country to actually give you commentary, because like TVNZ and those guys aren't doing a breakout for a quarterly GDP update, but it's going to be quite an interesting one tomorrow. And then, of course, tomorrow night, there is a special BHN live stream at 7 p.m. I might have said the wrong time last night. 7 p.m. tomorrow night, a regulatory standards bill special with Tanya Waikato. Tanya is going to be hosting Dr. Carwyn Jones and also Indigenous and human rights advocate Tina Nata, and they will be talking regulatory standards bill live at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. There are some people in there already who got really grumpy when they went, oh, I see it's tomorrow's gig. Fuck sakes. Yeah. That's why we've put it up for tomorrow. So tomorrow on the YouTube channel, there will be a 10:50 live stream with Craig. There will be a 6 p.m. live stream run by Tanya, and then there will be the 9 p.m. live stream with your 2 hairy friends. So that's all tomorrow. So in other words, just open your YouTube app tomorrow and just stay on it all day. In between those times, you can look at other things. We've been doing some clips and this and that and all those kinds of things. So, anything else, Joe, before we bring Melanie in?
Yeah, just a quick thing that I noticed today, speaking of the RSB. I noticed something that David has started doing. I'll just bring it up.
Are we talking Mr. Seymour?
Yes. Has he started doing this?
What the hell is the victim of the day?
Yeah. Regulatory Standards Derangement Syndrome, victim of the day, Dame Anne Salmon from the University of Auckland. And then he did one the other day as well, where he's tagged Dr. George Laking from the University of Auckland as well. And he's just targeting people that are vocally standing up against his bill. And it's just both, really weird.
Well, it's awful. And it's also, once again, we listened to Dame Jacinda talking about America being sort of the incubator for cultural. I didn't use the word cultural wars, but that was and it just this comes straight from the American right. Trump derangement syndrome. They've just taken it and gross.
And targeting academics and that sort of thing as kind of an elite, like they just don't get it, they don't understand. And but last I checked, you can object to someone putting a bill on. The fact that the deputy prime minister is
acting
targeting acting prime minister, true. Is targeting academics for saying that his bill's a dog shit piece of just crap. Just doesn't seem like a good move.
Yeah.
Maybe our wee baby boy is panicking a little bit.
Maybe. All right. So we're going to talk a bit about regulatory standards bill now. We're going to talk about how it could affect the laws and regulation in your area and what could change. We are going to welcome to the show a friend of the show. I lost my mouse. Always do that. Described on her website as reliable, professional and accurate translation and quality assurance, a licensed Te Reo Māori translator interpreter. It is Melanie Nelson. Melanie, hello and welcome to the show.
Kia ora Pat, kia ora Chewie, a tēnā koutou katoa.
I just want to say to people about this, we have a QR code coming up during this conversation, and it's going to help you, people watching, be informed of what's going on and what Melanie's going to speak to. So get your phones ready to grab it, because it's going to be on a document on the screen, so we're not going to be able to leave it up the whole time. We will bring it back through the show, but if you want access to this document that Melanie is going to talk about, a QR code is going to come up on the screen shortly. And get your phone, crack, and then you'll be able to go straight into it all for yourself. Melanie, here we are on the eve of the eve. Is that right? The eve of the eve? Of the regulatory standards bill submissions finishing. Am I right? Is it 1 p.m. Friday? Is that right, Chewie? You said that last night, didn't you?
1 p.m. Monday.
1 p.m. Monday.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So we got the weekend.
I mean, that's a little bit unusual in itself. It's usually like 11:59 p.m. So yeah.
And I think last time with the treaty principles bill, the portal crashed in the night and no one was there to fix it. So given it's already crashed a few times, the 1 p.m. deadline's probably wise.
Do we have any ideas about numbers yet? I mean, the last one, the treaty principles, got 300,000 submissions. Do we know yet? Do we have any idea?
Yeah, there was something out the other day to say there was already 70-something thousand. So That's pretty amazing with still close to a week to go at that point.
I wonder if they'll get above 0.3% approval, like their last round of submissions for this pile of horse shit got. But first of all, Melanie, I think what we should just do is give you some window, just to start on the same page, is give us a real quick heads up, if you could, about what this thing is, and then we can talk about the why. So the regulatory standards bill, how do you describe it? What are they trying to do?
So there's a few great phrases have been used to describe this, which I think all sum it up quite well. One is an attempt to cripple government from acting in the public interest. Another is a neoliberal sausage maker or cookie cutter for our laws, or a Bill of Rights for corporations. And the other day I interviewed Duncan Webb and he described it as a block of butter issue. So it really can be described in so many ways, and that's probably quite confusing. The Treaty Principles Bill 2.0 is another one. But really, the way it can be so many different things at once is, I think, the key term for it is the everything bill, which Jonathan Boston coined when I interviewed him last year. And so it is a bill which would affect everything because it seeks to rewrite most of our laws in alignment with its principles, which are a particular libertarian set of principles. And so if you sort of imagine the RSB as sitting inside a 100-sided prism or a centagon, and then whatever angle you view from within it, you see a different aspect of society, whether it's health, education, climate, justice, te tiriti, infrastructure, care, whatever. And so each lens focuses your attention on particular aspects, but all the others remain in your peripheral vision. So that's how the bill is so far reaching, because it really touches everything.
I do like the use of the word Centagon. I think we should try and get that in every single show we do from now on, Chewie. So is it kind of fair to say if it was good policy, it could be quite useful, but if it was bad policy, it's going to be quite destructive?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And, what's as important as what's in the bill is what's missing from the bill. So the bill has a set of principles that are called the principles of responsible regulation, and they're largely libertarian and ACT party policy principles. But missing from those policies, they centre around property rights and individual rights and keeping government really small, limiting what it can do. But missing are things that we would currently balance in our lawmaking processes, like the public good, the environment, future generations, human rights, our international obligations, te tiriti o waitangi, and it's Parliament's role to balance all of those. So this is an attempt to prioritise a specific set of rights over others.
The way I hear you describe it just then, a few buzzwords that came out was ACT policy. Is this cramming what ACT wants into legislation above and beyond what even, quote unquote, the right would want? Like if this was, these things that are going to change, are they also going to be what National wants? Or is it really just the 8% party changing all of these laws within New Zealand to best suit their agenda within New Zealand?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think within National at the moment, there's a reasonably strong libertarian wing, but there's also the traditional conservative or more Christian wings of National. So I suspect that there would be some National MPs that would be quite supportive of these principles and others who are probably really not, as they're discovering what's in the RSB here.
Melanie has offered at the end of our little chat to answer any specific questions from people. So again, we will say no guarantees every question will be asked and answered. But if you do have a specific question for Melanie about the RSB, then feel free to chuck it in the chat. We'll keep an eye on it and try and, if we see any Chewie, we can maybe star them and see if we can put them to Melanie at the end. Also, understanding that your question may well get answered within our conversation. So we'll see how that pans out. Chewie, do you want to ask anything before we go to the very impressive document that we're going to look at to see what how it educates us on the regulatory standards bill?
Anything specific at this stage, so let's move on to the document.
Yeah, maybe should I just run through like the 4 bullet points of the key things in the Act for anyone that's not familiar with it?
Yeah, so this is before the document? We're not going to the document yet?
Yeah,
talk about
just so people know if they haven't come across it yet. So as I mentioned, there's a set of principles of responsible regulation, and responsible is quite important here. It's a bit of an attempt to say that anything outside of that, Parliament can still look at it, but it would have to be justified as, I guess, irresponsible regulation if it's not within responsible. So most new and existing legislation should be consistent with the principles. It's not binding, but they'd have to publicly justify if they're inconsistent with it. And so there's a lot of layers of soft power in here, which the economist Jeff Bertram has called poison pills. It also gives significant powers to the Minister for Regulation, which is currently David Seymour. And it sets up a regulatory standards board, which he appoints, and it's accountable to him. And they take complaints from the public and can investigate legislation which is inconsistent with what's essentially the ACT party principles in this bill.
All right. Wow. Okay.
That is wide-ranging.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we hear you saying the everything bill. It's very wide-ranging, isn't it? Chewie, I see you've marked some already. Should we ask a couple of questions now rather than leaving kind of 20 till the end of the show? You can decide how that runs, sir. You've marked a few.
I think that there was, I'm going to leave that question to last because it's great. We've got a question here. What scope does the bill have to change the principles? Can the Minister of Regulation make changes, or would they have to go through an amendment bill?
Yeah, great question. So I think that probably Parliament could change what the principles were. The Minister couldn't amend the bill directly, but quite importantly, that leads you to how are the principles defined? And they're actually not defined in the bill, but the Minister for Regulation and the Attorney General will issue the guidance about how they are to be interpreted and applied. So again, it leaves a huge amount of that power and decision making with the Minister for Regulation.
And
one more time?
it's in the ballot. Asks, could the RSB override local councils' decisions like environment or hazard designations?
Yeah, so the RSB doesn't directly override anything. What would happen is that the RSB, if it gets put into law, then our laws and regulations under it would be reviewed for consistency with it, and then they'd either be amended to make them consistent with all its principles, or it would have to be publicly justified why they weren't being amended. But bylaws are included, so it covers primary and secondary legislation, most primary and secondary legislation. I'm not quite sure where the designations sit, whether they're in regulation or legislation, or if they're a separate thing. So it would depend on that. But overall, even if they're outside, there's likely to be a huge shift in what's prioritised and valued by government and by councils to avoid this huge, massive red tape of having to review and justify and amend and publicly defend why they're acting outside of these principles of responsible regulation. So that's some of that sort of soft power and added layers of bureaucracy and red tape that will really tie government and councils in not fulfilling those process requirements that are in the bill.
Talking about the everything bill, Mata has a comment as well. Mata says, it's the bill Ruth Richardson wished she could have thought of in the 1990s. I think that's fair, Melanie?
Yeah, I think maybe Ruth Richardson even did. I'm not sure, but this ideal has been around since the reforms in the 80s and the early 90s, and this government's increasingly saying it's, following that kind of playbook of the 90s national government then. So, this is well stated to be the missing puzzle piece, as Jane Kelsey says, from the neoliberal reforms, and something which, the first version of this bill was written in 2001 by the Bryce Wilkinson for the Business Roundtable. So, it's got that whakapapa right back to that time.
There's I was listening to a podcast today, forgive me, I can't remember what it was, but they were talking about the No King protests in America, and they were talking about they didn't use the word revolution, but they were basically saying all revolutions come incrementally. Like, you might think that you're only making a small change today, but in 20 years' time when the revolution happens, it started off on a bunch of these small steps. And I just thought, well, the opposite of a revolution, whatever these guys are trying to do, could also be increments of small steps. Like the day that Roe versus Wade passed in 1973, they started working on a way to overthrow it. It took them 50 years, but they got there. So these incremental steps for the good and for the bad is what we're looking at, unfortunately.
That's so true. And David Seymour said that this is intended to implement a culture change over decades. And, that's a culture change, not just in how government works and thinks, but, in what the public thinks and values as, within responsible regulation. He's compared it to the Public Finance Act. And we know, I know my generation, it's just normal for us that we always talk about inflation and the things which are enshrined in that act. But for generations previously, that was a new thing, and it's certainly been permeated the whole system. So I think that's how this is intended to work by its proponents.
Hey, let's have a look at this document. This document that's been prepared called the Sector-Specific Tool for the Regulatory Standards Bill. Now, this is what I was saying to whānau watching, that get your phones out if you want to have a copy of it, because there is easiest way to probably do it is right there off that QR code. Take a snapshot of the screen, get the QR code. It'll take you to the tinyurl.com/RSB tool, which is also the domain. And maybe Kiwi Scoot, you can put that into the chat as well. tinyurl.com/RSB tool, or that QR code, which we'll bring back up as we walk to it. Talk to us about this, because this looks quite detailed. If we scroll down to just the contents, there is a lot of information here. Too much, obviously, to go through, but this whole document is, as I said at the start of the show, a tool to help us reflect on how the RSB could affect laws and regulation in your area and what could change. So do you want to, I'll leave this up for a bit so people can grab that QR code. Do you want to speak to this and tell us what this is all about, Melanie?
Yeah, so this came out of a group of us thinking, well, how can the public actually get to grips with this everything bill and how it affects everything? And, it's pretty overwhelming, and the RSB looks kind of dry and boring. So at first glance, I think a lot of people would think, oh, it doesn't affect me. And we've had lots of really amazing work done on the impacts for Te Tiriti and on the environment in particular. And so those two aspects of it, I think, are quite well understood now, that it's, hugely detrimental to both of those. But we really wanted to bring attention to the huge range of impacts across every sector, whether it's conservation, climate action, banking, insurance, local government, working conditions, education, broadcasting, health, you name it, and there's probably some effects. And so this tool is really to enable people to do some thinking in their groups of friends or colleagues. Doesn't tell you what to think or say, but it offers reflective questions to really help people think critically and start conversations about this, and to participate meaningfully in the democratic process, hopefully.
So who would be the target audience to pick up this document and say, I know someone in the chat said it's only 200 pages, but yeah, that's too long for us to go through tonight. Might be a good weekend read though. Who is the target audience for this? Who is the best person to get it, to read it, and to use it?
Yeah, well, it's already been used a lot. It's only been out about a week, but we've had a huge number of messages from people from different organisations, union groups, environmental groups, political party, local groups, church groups, all sorts of people, specialists in different sectors, and the climate space, and workers' rights, and health, and the regulation of professions and education. So a huge number of people have been drawing on it. I think, if you're someone that is like, it's all too much, I don't want to think about it, I just want to know how to put in a simple submission, this is not for you. There's some really great submission builders online, and you can just put in one sentence saying, I oppose the Regulatory Standards Bill, if you do oppose it. And that is valuable, and everyone should do at least that. If you want to make a more personal submission, then, tell your own story and talk about, what you care about and what you value in our lawmaking and what you disagree with in this bill. But then for those who'd like to go deeper and actually understand and do some original thinking that can really inform either just themselves and their workplace or their organisation, or maybe inform the select committee of an aspect of the implications and potential flow-on effects of this bill, which otherwise won't be covered. Because I saw that the Green MP, Francisco Hernandez, put in some written parliamentary questions asking all the ministers what advice they'd sought on the implications of the RSB for their portfolio. And it was basically nothing came back. And that's really concerning, that we have a bill that's gone through its first reading that, if it's implemented as they would like it to be, it could lead over time to the rewriting of the laws and regulations that govern each of their portfolios. And the knowledge just isn't there about what that might entail and what it might look like. So yeah, I think it really brings it to life and grounds it for people, rather than this amorphous bureaucratic sounding thing to, oh, what might it mean for this aspect of this thing I care about?
A question for you. It's maybe more an opinion-based question. We'll just put that QR code up one more time for people to grab it. I was going to say, we know why David Seymour says he wants to do this. I don't even know if we do know, publicly. But why do you think he's doing this? What's behind it? I'm not saying about what's his justification, what's his political angle. Why do you think he is doing this?
I think it's a capture of our whole system of government to tie it in to having to work very narrowly within the values that he holds and that the ACT Party hold, even when ACT is no longer in government. So to imprint a minority fringe really view and belief about what government is and what it should do, for libertarians it really should be there just to uphold private property rights and for policing kind of reasons and to protect liberties. So to imprint that and shift the culture and thinking of how government works and what it can do, and to make the things which we currently consider normal, like the public good, which is really the reason for government being there, and looking after the environment, upholding te tiriti, to make them politically very difficult to do, if not almost impossible, I guess, over time.
So what I hear you saying, correct me if my paraphrase is wrong, the party that believes, the party that says they believe in individual rights and the government not telling us what to do and the don't tread on me mentality and freedom from all these legislations, is in this instance saying, hey, we know best, we're going to tell you all what to do. This is what it feels like you're saying to me.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, you mentioned the freedom from this and that. And I think when we hear these terms, it's important to think, well, freedom for who and freedom from what? So,
yeah,
you know, it can sound like it's, oh, that's great. It's like freedom for me from, you know, that thing that annoys me. But it's not about you and me. It's about corporations and the wealthy. And David Seymour said as much in the first reading. He said the hard left lawyer, Jane Kelsey, has criticised this as being about protecting wealth and property. And, well, you're finally catching on, Jane. You know, that is what it's about, basically, was the point. So I think people need to remember that individuals in our laws also includes corporations. So whenever you hear person or individual, think corporation. When you hear good for whom? For corporations and the wealthy. It's about preserving existing wealth and protecting corporate power and profits and uplifting that.
As James says, it's freedom for the most wealthy. I remember having this debate with Rodney Hyde when I interviewed him a few times, because Rodney Hyde came out when he was head of ACT saying, oh, I always vote for what brings freedom. And I said to him, but sometimes when you bring freedom to one group of people, you oppress the other. What do you do in that instance? And of course, he didn't know, because I suspect what James just said is the truthful answer was probably, well, I always vote with what brings freedom to the most wealthy. I think that's probably more the truth in what he was saying, because obviously when one person's granted a right or freedom, it has the possibility of impinging on someone else's. Not always, but it can do that. So yeah. Chewie, my friend, you've been there in the corner, sitting listening. What are your wise words of wisdom
I think
this fine evening?
I think this is really concreted in some of the positions that I was thinking about this bill basically from the get-go, that is a devious piece of legislation where its true purpose is hidden from as many people as possible, that it's been rolled out in a way that has concealed its true intention. And I think you're going to end up being highlighted as on his little hit list on his Facebook page, I think, Melanie.
Badge of honour. Melanie, badge of honour.
I'd wear it. I'd wear it proudly.
I think maybe they're avoiding drawing attention to the work I'm doing at the moment.
yeah, well, very true. But I mean, that's the whole thing. This is like the fourth attempt to bring this piece of legislation in, and it's never got anywhere. But this seems to be like David Seymour's never going to get a coalition as soft as this one. This is his best chance to get it through, and even to the point of running the treaty's principles bill up first, knowing that it was going to be the target that everyone was going to get all righteously angry about and submit on, and then go, well, that's that job done. And even at the end of last year, where they put up the website for feedback, so people would think, I've already submitted on this one. I've already done that job. Hoping that everybody would be exhausted by all of this bullshit by the time that the real document arrives. the real piece of legislation. And then even in the language and the way it's discussed, it doesn't touch on what it actually does. It's so dense, and its meaning is so obscure that how is the standard person that doesn't spend all of their time doing submissions and looking at legal documents supposed to untangle how many nooks and crannies this piece of legislation actually goes into? I think
true.
This is a real tipping point, because if he gets it in, we have the leader of a party that has got maybe 8% in the last election, concreting in a foundation of his party's ideology into government, whether he's part of it or not, is fucking terrifying. And the piece that really worries me is the bit about I think it's mining and exploration and that sort of thing. And like if the government changes and revokes permits or tells these companies that they've got to clean up their mess, they can be sued. The government can be sued by them, and we all get taken to court. It is a phenomenally dumb piece of legislation with vast ranging effects that we absolutely need to stop dead in its tracks.
Totally agree with you there. And you mentioned that it's had 3 attempts before, and we've got the 3 strikes back now. Is this going to be 3 strikes and it's in? Like, that's not very consistent. And really agree with what you said at the start, Chewie, about the putting up of the photos and information about the dissenters and pathologizing dissent. That's a very concerning and scary step in our politics. And I did an interview, I think, yesterday with Dame Salmon, who was, I think, today's victim on that, if people would like to hear what she says about the RSB. She's extremely critical and very concerned about it. But, it's interesting because the response, I want to acknowledge you guys, actually, because when I first came across the RSB last October and spent a few weeks going, oh my gosh, what on earth is this? And getting it ready to publish and published on my Substack. And you guys had me on to talk about it, I think, the day I published. So you broke it into the mainstream media or the media. You're nearly mainstream, aren't you? And you're a big part of those 23,000 submissions getting generated. So thanks for taking that brave step and doing that. That was really bringing it to the people for the first time. And following those submissions, we had, the lobby group, the New Zealand Initiative, who it was their predecessor, the Business Roundtable, that wrote the thing in the first place. They were like, it's not ideological. There's nothing to see here. It's just about transparency. And then we had Richard Prebble came out a couple of days later and said, this law is so important, it could be New Zealand's Magna Carta, and perhaps hadn't got the message that we're going, there's nothing to see here, guys, is the kind of line. But I think when they say there's nothing to see here, it's not ideological, that says to me that maybe they really are quite strong libertarians, because some libertarians will say that libertarianism isn't an ideology, it's just fundamental rights that have existed since time immemorial. So a bit more like a fundamental religion almost. So it's very concerning, and I hope everyone listening has written a submission or is about to.
I haven't done one yet. I put my hand up, but I definitely am going to do one. Now, I thought it was Friday. I was going to do it tomorrow, but Chewie, I'm doing it. Chewie, I'm running 4 fucking podcasts at the moment. I'm going to do it.
You.
I know, but the reason I haven't done it is so you can keep reminding me, and then you can remind everybody else at the same time, because I definitely will be doing it.
Don't be like Pat, chat.
Let's just wrap up with a few listener questions, or viewer questions, I should say. Will it be possible for the RSB to be reversed if there is a change in government? That's what Charlie wants to know.
Yeah, good question. Probably. It should be able to be repealed. There may be some tricky things in international agreements that may interact with that, but both Labour and the Greens have said that they will repeal it. Hopefully it would be repealed, but we really do need to stop it passing if at all possible, because a lot of damage could still be done with it next year, and if there's another term of this government.
I think if we have learned anything about Prime Minister Luxon, it is that he is a spineless jellyfish, and if they get 200,000-300,000 submissions where 95% of people go hells to the no, that might be enough for him to go populist. I can't do this, can't do that. I mean, we don't trust this government even when they say the right thing. But I mean, why take the risk? Everyone should just get in there and get it done.
I think we need to make it politically untenable for them to keep progressing it. And one of the ways to do that, I think, is to, really build awareness about the everyday impacts for people. For example, like, if the government wanted to break up supermarket monopolies, then that would be a regulatory taking potentially, and they'd have to compensate, or the framework would set up that expectation that supermarkets would be compensated. And so the taxpayer would foot the bill, which would probably lead to similar cost even if the prices were lower. You'd be paying through your taxes, or likewise with price caps on supermarket and electricity prices, their lost profit would potentially have to be made up by cash payments to the corporation recovered from the customers.
But this is how you know that they're full of crap with their, David Seymour. Oh, we shouldn't be spending a cent more of the public's money than we need to be. Don't stop, less tax, stop, because what you're saying is actually echoed in a question that actually looks at the last question as well. Wahiki says, is it true that if the bill goes through, that it can't be repealed due to a clause that affected parties, i.e. corporations, will have to be compensated for their projected profits? So the way you've just described it means foodstuffs, whatever the other one's called, they get broken up, they get compensated. That's taxpayer money paying for it. Yet on the other side of his three mouths, David Seymour is saying we're not going to waste any taxpayer money at all. Again, unless maybe it goes to corporations. So I know that you've just said that it probably can be repealed, but I guess Wahiki's picking up on that idea about affected parties. Maybe that means it'll be more untenable. It might be harder to repeal because then the public is going to have to go to the next polls with a government that they've just had to pay out $1 billion to corporations because they broke them up. So maybe whilst it might still be possible, they'll be less keen to do it because of the blowback, perhaps, potentially?
Potentially. There's all these layers of the political pressure and the public backlash because they're, doing something which is outside of the responsible regulation. The bill says itself that it doesn't create legal rights itself, and so most of the rights for compensation would come through the review of other legislation and the integration of those rights in the other legislation. But the bill itself would still set up significant opportunities for judicial review. For example, limiting tobacco labelling or advertising of fossil fuel industries could lead to regulatory takings or judicial review of the process for those decisions. Even things like minimum wage and health and safety and holidays, they're all set by regulation, and the RSB really favours deregulation, so could be a lot less protections for workers and favouring the property rights of business and profits, which of course are property as well as labels and things. So it's quite complex, and I'll be really interested to see the expert submissions of some of those key legal experts around exactly how, those aspects that the person asking the question was raising.
How about just one more question, I think. Kiwibird just wants to say the bill must be cast into the fires of Mount Doom, because in every New Zealand-based show there must be a Lord of the Rings mention at some point. It's the law. That was a law passed by Peter Jackson when he was Prime Minister, I think. Fetu Marama says this is interesting. By corporations, do they include corporate Ewe entities? Because that ought to scare the crap out of national New Zealand First voters. Very interesting question.
Yeah, I think they probably would be included if they're like, a corporation or a legal entity. The issue perhaps with what's being thought about here is, can that entity then sue for impacts? So we probably need to be clear that the regulatory takings are only if legislation or regulation impacts and restricts your property right. And the assumption is that you can do whatever with your property. And the only reasons to limit what you can do with it or your individual rights is if it affects another individual or corporation's property rights, not for the reasons of the public good or the environment or te tiriti. So it's reversing the polluter pays principle. It's kind of like pay the polluter. And so the question here would be, well, would the Ewe entity want to complain to government that the government was implementing regulation to look after the environment, and therefore they want compensation because they wanted to trash the environment? So it still comes back to those principles and values. Are your values reflected in those principles? And if not, you're probably not going to want to complain that legislation's inconsistent with the principles, because you actually do value the environment. So you'd want legislation to be inconsistent. So yeah, it gets kind of complex. I think there's one space where there could be some significant interest and opportunities for iwi, which is in the areas where for example, the river Te Awa Tupua, Whanganui River, has legal personhood, so it's a legal person. So there's some interesting questions there. But treaty settlement legislation and the Marine and Coastal Areas Act are excluded from the RSB. And so your instant reaction is, oh, that's good, because they're left to just do their thing as they are. But there's a couple of key things here. One is that most treaty settlements include a commitment to a new relationship under Te Tiriti or Waitangi, based in the treaty and the principles, and with them being excluded from from the compulsory consideration for lawmaking, that's a real breach of those settlements. But also with the exclusion of those treaty settlements and the Marine and Coastal Area Act, it means that they're excluded from this fair compensation clause. So treaty settlements are usually 1 or 2% of what was lost, not what anyone would consider fair. And likewise with the pending changes to the Marine and Coastal Area Act, it would be, really kind of cutting off that possibility of fair compensation for those adjustments to property rights through the RSB. So again, very, very complex. And I'd encourage that person to check out the tool and explore some of the questions with their iwi or their area of interest.
Cool. We'll definitely bring that QR code up one more time before the end. But I think, Chewie, you wanted to leave Gold's question for the last anyway, because we are going to ask the last question, asked in the spirit of Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. Gold just wants to know, why is David? That's it. Why?
Yeah, good question.
I think that's a question that's going to linger in my brain.
Is that a rhetorical question? He maki hoi. Yeah, I mean, I think we can personalize it to David, but I think that's actually not wise, because if it wasn't him, it would be someone else. This bill's been around since long before him, as was the Treaty Principles Bill. Its first iteration was introduced also in 2006. And so these are ideas that are based in ideology that goes back, many, many decades, and, covers, is around the globe. So, he's the actor in this instance, but if we make it too much about him, he gets a lot of attention, and it's actually about the ideas and the ideology, and it's about not just pushing back against that, but it's about what kind of country do we live in. This is setting out to shape his dream of our future, but what's our vision and what's our dream, and how do we express that and work towards that, I think, is really what people are coming together around over this. We're realizing that, te tiriti is the environment, is our social well-being, is our health, is our public services. There's a huge push in the RSB against redistribution and, could really tilt towards privatisation. So all these things are interconnected, and it's an awful thing to be facing and fighting, but it's also a great opportunity to really pull together and imagine a much better future, I think.
Okay, there's the sector-specific tool for the regulatory standards, but up there again, tinyurl.com/RSB tool, QR code there again. If it's been too quick for you and you've missed it each time, remember this broadcast stays on whatever platform it is you're watching it on, other than Twitch actually, but all the other ones, after it's finished recording. And this will be a clip tomorrow as well, if you want to share that around. Hey, Melanie, thanks for jumping in and giving us some time tonight. Is there anything in particular you want to leave us with before we head off?
No, I think that's great. Just, make sure you make a submission, however short. If you want to do some extra thinking, please do that. And as well as making a submission, tell 3 other people about this bill and that it's bound to affect something they care about, and encourage them to find out what that might be. Because, there's still, a huge number of people aren't too aware of it, and submissions close Monday. And this is a really critical time to give such a strong message to National and New Zealand First that we don't want it, and to the opposition parties that if it passes, they have the mandate to repeal it. So, thank you for all your work and coverage.
Oh, no problems. I was also going to say, and if you want to know more about it, 7 p.m. tomorrow night with Tanya Waikato, I'm sure she will be pulling out the big guns, literally the big guns, and throwing down a bit more about what we need to look out for. Melanie,
that'll
thanks
be
so much
amazing.
for joining us.
This is like the pre-act.
We're the opening act.
Incredible.
Perfect.
Encourage everyone to come along tomorrow night, and I'll try and listen in too. Those guys are doing amazing work.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be in touch super soon, and stay close. If you ever need anything, just reach out, and we're here.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate what you do.
Cheers.
All the best.
Kia ora.
Bye-bye. All right, Chewie, should we do some super chats? Unless there's anything you want to particularly bounce off the back of that?
I like that we have been banging the drum on this since it reared its ugly head, but in the process we have gone back to this so many times with so many people that are much, much smarter than us.
That's not hard.
David wants to write off the people that are bagging his bill as just being, bots, or just putting in low quality submissions, or at the other end, just people that have a derangement syndrome about the bill, no matter the fact that they're New Zealander of the Year winners, learned academics who absolutely know what they're talking about. So it's just good that we've got the depth of knowledge on this to help guide. We might have started from a position of like, well, it doesn't sound good. Now we know it's not good. It's more than it just doesn't sound good. No, it's a little bit like we got that lesson from Gary Payinda when we heard $50 million going to the private sector to clear the backlog of hospital operations, and we kind of go, well, if you're on that list, you'll be pretty happy. It doesn't sound too bad. Maybe we should get educated. And then, of course, Gary comes on and goes, well, if they had to put that $50 million into the public system, we could have also cleared the backlog, and we could have more nurses ready to actually run operating theatres permanently onwards. And you're like, okay. So that would have been a much better result. So sometimes when they sound okay, or you're not quite sure, a more knowledgeable person, which, as I said, it's not hard to get on compared to us, is always good to bring on board to learn from. Isn't it funny how so many of these bills that have come up and these law changes have just enabled a money funnel into the pockets of private entities, into the bonus structure of boards and shareholders? Isn't that funny? It's almost like some sort of weird coincidence. Strange coincidence,
actually. Kind of weird.
I mean, Shane Jones is over in Singapore at the moment telling people that oil exploration is all good to go anywhere in our area, not specific areas of our coastline, the whole lot. None of us have been told that, but investors in Singapore are being told that. And there's a lovely sort of intersection with the RSB bill that they can come and have a punt, destroy our marine environment, and if it doesn't work out and they make a mess, they get to sue us. It's fucked. Don't fuck.
Donna says, I got told off at the pub for talking to patrons about RSB submissions. What a downer. Yeah, I agree, Donna. Get into it. Gold says, when they can't attack the points, they attack the person. That'll be about the derangement syndrome. That was when they came in. Danger of Mouse says, feels like David Seymour is taking a leaf out of the Trump playbook. Yep, I think he's read it cover to cover, man. Kiwi Bird says, as a libertarian, I do not endorse the Regulatory Standards Bill, and also says the Regulatory Standards Bill is neoliberal, not libertarian. Interesting. Interesting. So just a reminder again, team, and I've already told you this, but and I do apologize. Some people here are like, it says it's live in 21 hours. What the? Because this is our graphic when we're coming on. However, it is a BHN special hosted by Tanya Waikato with Dr. Carwyn Jones and also Tina Nata, who are going to be talking about it from 7 p.m. tomorrow night. I will have the pleasure of operating the system for. I might get a chance to be in the chat, Chewie, because I'll be in the back room. I'll be in the waiting room, keeping an eye on things and making sure it's all running. So I'll get to watch the chat for a change and see if I can boot out any crunchies. But that may also go to Tanya's Facebook page, which I think has got 11,000 followers as well. And then, of course, Tanya is known for particularly TikTok. It'll be cut up, edited, and used all over the place. So there you go. All right. I was going to say du jour. That's of the day. I was going to say topic du jour, meaning topic number 2. But topic du jour would be topic of the day. Part 2.
Sorry,
do you remember Hot Shots?
I love Hot Shots.
Hot Shots Part 2?
I was just thinking the comment about being thrown out of a bar for talking about the RSB. Was that the new parliamentary bar?
The one they was it? How many millions that cost?
That'll get you thrown out.
Hey, let's go and have a look at a conversation this morning held on
this idiot.
Gerald Now. I can't. It's always going to be Gerald from now on. Let's go check out what was said on Gerald today. Sorry, Herald. Sorry, Shane Curry. It's just, I made a mistake. I called it Gerald Now and it's stuck. It's like we still call the supermarket the supermarket because one of our kids couldn't say supermarket. Jandals in my house are still Gandals because one of the kids couldn't say it. So I'm just sorry, forevermore. This is Gerald Now. Do you know what? I'll say something to you, Chewie, that'll ruin some people's lives about things. If I just say this out loud, forevermore, when you're at the supermarket and you look at in the ice cream aisle, Tip Top ice creams, or I think Tip Top do bread, don't they? But certainly ice creams, forevermore, you'll see it as Jip Jop because it does look like 2 J's. So from this point onwards, when you look at Tip Top, you will see Jip Jop from now on. Thus saith the Pat. Okay? And tell me tomorrow. You'll see Jip Jop from now on. I'm just telling you. I'm just because I love you. Jip Jop. All right. What were we talking about? Oh, that's right.
I don't know.
Gerald Now. Thank you very much, Gerald Now, for giving us some more chance to do content. Interesting this morning. I have no notes. I've got no notes on this.
Uh-oh.
Let's see what they were talking about on Gerald Now. He had on what looked to me like a hostage video. You'll have to describe, Chewie, who was the hostage. Is it Seymour or is it Chloe Swarbrick? But it does look like a hostage video. And they talked about all sorts of things. One of the funniest things is the kind of slightly taking the piss, slightly joking way that Ryan Bridge slammed the Prime Minister for being a spreader of dis and misinformation.
Right now, though, it turns out that story about the government halving sick days from 10 down to 5, those evil, meanie people, was fake news. Only problem with it, of course, is that it was spread by the Prime Minister himself in an interview on Monday. So what's going on here?
Because he doesn't know what's
the leader
up.
of the ACT Party is with us from Parliament, and Chloe Swarbrick, co-leader of the Greens.
So who's the hostage in this?
From an undisclosed location.
Yeah.
I think
who's the
David's already blinking out, help me.
Yeah. I thought I put on Twitter today, Chloe just blinked twice and we'll send in SEAL Team 6. But I don't know. Who do you think is the hostage? We'll have to see.
Thanks. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning. Hey, I thought we'd start with butter because we've had lots of emails just in the...
Did you know, Chewie, it's actually really good that butter's really expensive. It's a good thing. And it's good that we're paying so much for butter. It's true. Have a listen.
Last couple of minutes since we started talking about it. And I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll have different views, but butter, Chloe, very expensive for people. One of the drivers of food price inflation that we saw yesterday.
Yes.
But isn't it also good because we're paying an export price and that's what our farmers are getting. That comes back to the country. Can you see?
Yeah. So there you go, guys.
What?
If you're paying $9 for a pound of butter, just remember it's good because the farmers are making a shit ton of money. Thanks, Fonterra. So this is the actual conversation that Ryan Bridge went through his brain this morning, that it's good that we're paying so much for butter.
We're paying an export price and that's what our farmers are getting. That comes back to the country. Can you see both sides of it?
I mean, as with all things, of course you can see both sides of it, but at the end of the day, I think what people are concerned about is their ability to put food on the table. And that's why we need to be squarely focused on improving the cost of living for New Zealanders, whilst also rapidly reducing our climate changing emissions, which, you know, if we leave climate change unabated, farmers are those hit first and worst by climate change charged weather events. So that's why the Greens are really proud to have put our green budget on the table just last month to show people precisely how that is possible if we use.
Do you like the
Well
bumper
done.
sticker? Farmers
Well
are
done,
hit.
Chloe.
Say it with me, team. First and worst.
Hardest.
So that's it. You know, we talk about in this day and age needing to have a bumper sticker. I mean, I'm not saying it's good, but there you go. Farmers are hit first and worst.
Proud to have put our green budget on the table just last month to show people precisely how that is possible if we use our collective resources to realise our collective ambitions.
David, is the price of butter a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's both. It's obviously very good.
Why? What? How is that a question? You know, is Chewie? You know, is suicide a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, there's just some things you don't need to ask the question for. The people are struggling with the cost of living right now, right? It means it's too expensive for a good portion of New Zealand to live. They're going backwards, especially the most vulnerable. And the question asked by this dingus is, you know, it's kind of 50-50, isn't it? The price of butter being so expensive. Can you see both sides of it? No. No, we can't. And anyone who says otherwise, Mr. Seymour, fair warning, is even more of a dingus. I'm sorry to use such foul language tonight, but, you know, I'm just feeling that irate.
Thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's both. It's obviously very good for New Zealand farmers to see that milk price up around $10. However, New Zealand consumers are paying that global price that the farmers are getting. Ultimately, it's not just butter, it's all the things people are trying to afford. How easily we can afford it depends on the strength of the New Zealand dollar on our economy, and that's why it's so important that we have a government that's really focused on managing its own finances and affairs well, so that there's more for everybody.
I love it how Chloe has actively said before in interviews that she hasn't got a poker face. I'm actually watching Chloe's face now and listening to David, because Chloe will give us the tea on what she thinks about what David's saying. Yes, Chewie?
Do you remember that old political debate till the worm?
Yep.
The worm would go up if the audience liked it.
O'Haria Belmont. What was his name? Peter Dunn.
Yeah. Instead of the worm, let's just have Chloe's eyebrows.
Wow. Okay.
How much they move denotes how good or bad it is.
So down would be bad, like furrowed. Up would be
Down
good?
and together, and up and away is good.
Obviously
we need to workshop this.
We need
get a metric.
we need to build this animation for in 12 months' time when we do a tour of New Zealand speaking to politicians. So there you go, developers out there. That's what we need to do.
Really focused on managing its own finances and affairs well, so that there's more for everybody else to use to provide for their own needs, and for everything from butter to clothing to getting around the town with petrol.
Sick leave.
Which is not working at the moment. He's just saying we've got to have a good, strong economy so people can pay for the butter, which you're not doing, David. So what you're professing here, it should be doing, you're not doing, because people are struggling more today than they were a year ago. So you're not doing it. So you can't say it's good and bad, and it's hard for them to earn. But you know, we build the economy, we make a stronger economy, people can afford it. You're not making a stronger economy. That's not happening right now. So therefore, that just leaves the bad option. Are we settled? Just the bad option?
Chuck another question in there, Ryan. Is this proof that the free market doesn't work? Your thoughts?
Very good. I like that.
This was another issue this week that's popped up. Government not going to be cutting from 10 days down to 5 the sick leave. David, why not? Why do we need 10
Why not,
days sick
David?
leave?
Why not?
Well, it's an argument you can make that it should be 5. Other people would argue it should be 15. But the change that the government's
Who, anywhere, who of note. Now, I always put this caveat on. Someone with profile or power. Like, I'm sure we can find some rando in a pub saying it should be 15 days. But who of profile or power, so someone who has a platform or who has influence, has ever said fucking 15 days? Like who? Who has ever said it's 15 days? He's trying to make it sound balanced now. Well, it could be this, it could be that. No. Who has ever said 15 days as a necessity? Some people are lucky. Look at this in the chat. Wow. Sarah says her company gives us 15 days. Fantastic. But who has ever said?
There's also companies out there that go further and give like unlimited sick leave and that sort of thing, and generally find that people don't take the piss with it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not expecting that be mandated into law, but it's clearly acceptable for some businesses out there. Then they see a benefit to doing it.
Having healthy staff.
Having healthy, happy staff.
Yeah. No,
Crazy.
We'll keep going.
Productivity through the roof.
Keep going.
that it should be 5. Other people would argue it should be 15.
Who?
But the change that the government's making with Brooke van Velden as our Workplace Relations and Safety Minister is to ensure that it's prorated. And what that means at the moment, you could be someone that
Already
works
is.
part-time, say 1 day a week. So you only work 50 days a year, but you get 10 days off. That's 20% of your time as sick leave. The changes that Brooke will make it fairer, so that you get the same amount of days, about 10 days out of 250 or 4% of your time you can take off as sick, regardless of whether you work full-time or part-time.
Most people, Chloe, would think that's reasonable. Do you reckon?
Really?
I mean, if we want to be reasonable and evidence-based, then our starting point, I don't think, should be how do we cut this.
Can I say we gave Chloe a little bit of stick for her Q&A performance. There was a little bit of, I don't know whether it was unprepared or not quite the hard coming back was so strong, but she's just back, baby. She's back, all evidence-based, going straight to it, back in her natural habitat, chewing on the souls of ACT party leaders. It's fantastic to see.
If we want to be reasonable and evidence-based, then our starting point, I don't think, should be how do we cut this thing down. It should be looking at how we currently sit within kind of the middle of the stock when it comes to international metrics, and we would usually compare ourselves. But more so than that, the kind of starting question should be, how do we keep New Zealanders safe? How do we keep New Zealanders healthy and well? Because if we're talking about the economy in the broadest possible sense, then all that really is all of us, the things that we create, the rules that we put in place in order to try and govern those kinds of relationships. And I think that the starting point should be...
It's funny, because when David reacts, you know that Chloe's making a good point. When Chloe reacts, you know that David's making a bad point. He's like I think I put in one of the clips about Ruth Richardson that she was robbing from the poor and giving to the rich, the anti-Robin Hood. He's like the anti-worm. Well, that's actually worm. Anyway, we'll leave that. But he's like the opposite of what the worm did.
David gets banana mouth when he's all excited.
Yeah.
Making sure that New Zealanders are fit, healthy and safe to be able to go to work, which in turn has flow-on effects for our productivity and for the so-called growth that this government says it's fixated on. So the starting point should not be cutting those sick days. I heard from a number of constituents, particularly parents, who are really alarmed by the news about the potential cuts, whether it's half or just less than that. But again, the starting point should not be cuts. The starting point should be fairness.
There are no cuts being made. What is happening is that you get the same
Well,
amount.
there is cuts being made, even if all you do is go this pro rata that you think is not happening at the moment. That's a cut. That's a part-time worker going from 5 shifts off to 1 shift off. That's a cut. So you can't say there's no cuts coming. You might say there's no cuts coming for full-time workers, but you can't say no cuts, because if a part-time worker right now who works 1 day a week can get 10 shifts off, then what you're saying is they're going to get 2 shifts off. That would be a cut, Mr Seymour.
Starting point
Let's be
should
really
be
clear.
fairness.
There are no cuts being made. What is happening is that you get the same amount of sick leave, but it's proportional to the amount of time that you actually work.
Yeah.
Which is not the same amount. That would be less. That would be fewer days. That would be a cut.
Which I think makes sense. I think most people do that.
One day a week, you need 1 day off. If you're sick for a week and you need to work 5 days, you need 5 days off. That's fair.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. All right, that's it for these guys tonight. They're going to talk about the health system making adverts in the newspaper that they're reaching their targets. It does sound like very much the new people taking over Te Whatu Ora is very much wanting to stick their nose firmly up Luxon's backside to go, look at me, Daddy, we're doing well. But, we'll leave it at there for that. Should we some super chats? Should we do some super chats? Arvid says Gerald is geriatric news. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty good. Dumb and Dumber having a chat with Chloe. I see what you did there. Why do the poors deserve human decency, David? Ryan. Yes. Anything else you want to get to, Chewie? We've got one more thing to roll into.
Just one thing about this. Obviously the discussion about the sick leave was a massive fuck up. That the Prime Minister has just blurted out something without running it past anybody else.
Yeah.
And that in itself should be a bigger story than the discussion about this policy that isn't happening.
Yeah.
Because that's an enormous unforced error, just a huge clanger.
Yeah.
That Luxon's pulled out. And then, he's nothing. No one's talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
Just silly. The other thing that I saw about it was, I'm not sure if you saw the story about some Auckland-based entertainment employer was crying about how much sick leave cost them.
No, didn't see that.
No, that was just, the costs are unbearable. I've got 500 staff and it's costing me all of this money with the sick leave. What's your alternative? You're apparently some sort of entertainment business. You'd rather people come to work sick. Doesn't seem like a great idea.
Doesn't, but think about that. If you had 500 workers who each had 10 days, that's 5,000 days of sick leave. Wow. I'm just thinking purely about the numbers. But then, as you say, Chewie, perhaps if all your sick people came to work, you might need 12,000 sick days because they make everybody else really sick.
I just think that there's some employers out there that just look at that, put a dollar value on it and say, that's costing me money.
Yeah.
If your employees don't use it, then no, it's not.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't get paid. Like, I don't understand it. But if you can't afford to pay your staff what they're owed and legally mandated, then you shouldn't be a business.
Yeah. I feel the same.
I have this thought with a whole bunch of stuff. All those businesses that put a surcharge on a public holiday that they know is
exactly what I was going to say. Exactly what I was going to say.
It's like they don't spring it on you, my dude. You're either going to be busier than a standard day and make more money anyway, or it's not worth it to you, so don't open and everybody gets the holiday. But you should be able to factor these costs into how you run your business if you have a business brain at all. If you don't, then don't be in business. Don't do it. Go work for someone else.
I took one of my kids out for dinner. It was the public holiday Monday, King's birthday, and wanted to go to Japanese. Went to a Japanese restaurant in Dunedin. I won't say which one. Didn't know there was a surcharge until I got to the counter. I think, if anything, if I'd have known, I wouldn't have gone there. Because this is my old man shouts at at Cloud moment, is that at one stage they took this surcharge. At one stage they took the rates away. Back in the 80s and stuff, you used to have time and a half and day in lieu, and then I'm guessing under a national government they took that away. Now, when they took that away, all these same cafes and their forebears all of a sudden didn't make food cheaper on a public holiday, because they were absorbing it. And then when they bring it back, a whole bunch of them started to charge extra. I paid an extra $45 surcharge.
Whoa.
$45 surcharge.
Fucking hell.
And I had no idea. And I didn't know. And I said, how come you haven't told us about this? And they went, oh, yep, there it is. And on their podium, there was a little bit of paper about that big that said public holiday surcharge. $45. I should have called you. You would have yelled at them for me.
I would have started unloading the food that I had eaten. Like, just, oh, I'm sorry, I've made a horrible mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still refuse to go into a place doing a holiday surcharge unless it is absolutely no other option.
Yeah. I mean, okay, we're doing old men shouts at clouds. Here's the other thing. Surcharge for pay wave. No, don't offer pay wave. And they're supposed to advertise it, but sometimes they don't advertise it until you get to the last stage. And you go beep, and it goes through, and it goes through, and it goes 86-cent surcharge. And by the time you're at that stage, you're like, oh. Because here's the thing I was thinking, Chewie. How many people pay with these days? Apple Pay, Google Pay.
Yeah.
You can't swipe that. You can't swipe at Apple Pay.
Yeah.
You get charged a surcharge.
The
by
banks,
some.
Pat. Oh, I tell you what grinds my gears. The banks made everybody get PayWave cards, and I do love them. You know, because they're easy. But the banks made people get them. So if the banks make you get them and then charge you a fee for using them, that seems fucky. So David, if you want to get us off your back, go after the banks and get them to stop doing this.
I do feel like we've gone down an old men shouty, ranty, messagey bit for the last bit while. So maybe we should stop and just go into the super chats and say by export 2K13, there's supposed to be a social contract with farmers. You pollute our rivers and waterways to your heart's content. Just sell us cheaper price dairy. I don't know if we're on the same page with that one, but okay, very good. At least there's something. Arvid says, it's cynical accounting. They know the costs of everything, but the value of nothing. Sounds like a coalition I know from a favourite person of mine. There's a couple other you've started there. Rose says sick leave is a liability, but unlike holidays, it's capped, so it's manageable. And Jeff says, but Chewie, aren't you placing too high a price on a human life? On a human life, Chewie? All right, now let's get to this polling. Like I said earlier, we don't really pay much attention to mid-term polling because even though it's a weird, wanky thing to say when politicians go, well, the only poll that matters is on election day, it's kind of true. But we do look at the trends, and we always are interested in the preferred prime minister because what that's doing is the scientific research is looking at these two people at this time and what they're thought of in that moment. So that's and you could say the same about the political vote, but the difference is the political vote means nothing because it's not an election day. The preferred prime minister also means nothing because it's not election day, but it does also lean to look at how the performance of the prime minister is doing. That's what the preferred prime minister tells us. If the prime minister is doing great, they're always way more preferred. If they're not, well, then they're called Mr Luxon.
A new political poll has Labor ahead of National with a 7-point gain since the election. The latest post-Freshwater strategy poll has Labor at 34% and National back at 32%. Now that
trend is happening. I'm going to say this though. These jumps are outside the margin and I don't trust them. They're massive. Those jumps are massive, up 7, down 6. But the trend has been the left bloc going up a little bit and the right bloc coming down a little bit. All of those have been within margin. Is this the accurate one now? Meaning all those margins are now being, and all of a sudden you've got a big jump? Or are we going to have to wait till the next poll to see what it is? This could be the outlier, Chewie. So we'll just have to wait and see.
There's a drop of 6 points since they took over in late 2023. ACT and New Zealand First both have 8%. The Greens are down, but only slightly to 11, while Te Pāti Māori are on 2. Labour's Chris Hipkins is also ahead of National.
So that's an interesting one. That is an interesting one. Significantly ahead, preferred Prime Minister. Remember I said this at the last election in Chewie? You chastised for me for saying it, and you don't win elections if you're not the preferred Prime Minister. And what happened in the last kind of 3 months, Luxon became the preferred Prime Minister, National one. Be interesting again to see if this is an outlier or if this is part of the trend. And I'll be interested in our chat, Chewie, because I think lots of people in our chat, well, I won't say lots, I don't know if it's a majority or just a chunk, think that Chippy's a liability. They think that it should be someone else. But if this was accurate, What would be interesting is a preferred prime ministership with maybe some other names in there. That would be an interesting bit of research. 3. Why don't you go and do another poll and leave Chippy out? Like, let's say that he's retired or he's resigned or whatever, and then you put Karen in there, you put Barb Edmonds in there. Who else would you chuck in, Chewie? A few others in there as well, and then see who would get it. Like, what's Karen versus Luxon? They do this in the American politics. They'll put up like Biden versus Trump, Biden versus DeSantis, Biden versus, and actually check them out. That would be an interesting piece of polling to do. If the leader of Labour was Karen, how would he go as preferred prime minister? Interesting to see. Interesting to
put
think.
the cat amongst the pigeons, wouldn't it?
Well, I also realise it can't work because he's not prime minister. So Chippy's vote for preferred prime minister is based on his record and what he's doing as the leader. So it's, I wouldn't say it's the be all and end all, but it would be an interesting experiment.
Nationals Christopher Luxon in the preferred prime minister stakes, 43% to his 37%. So what is driving the swing? Here's Andrea Vance.
Christopher Luxon hoping a visit to China will boost economic growth, trade and tourism. But back at home, the budget hasn't done much to grow his vote. Labour has now pulled ahead of National in the latest post-freshwater strategy poll, as nearly half of New Zealanders say the country is heading in the wrong direction, and cost of living concerns continue to dominate public sentiment. But it's not quite enough for a change of government. Assuming all electorates won at the last election are held, National, New Zealand First and ACT would just cling to power with only a one-seat majority.
The changes are reflective of the mood of the economy and the fact that people are feeling under pressure.
Also under pressure
Dun, 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 dun. Sorry, it just popped into my head.
Is Christopher Luxon. Chris Hipkins has pulled ahead in the preferred prime minister stakes.
Christopher Luxon is completely out of touch with what families are going through. The cost of living pressures have not got any easier under this government, and I think that people see Chris Hipkins as the alternative that actually understands the pressure that they are faced with.
The poll also has a favourability rating, and interestingly, it found the country's most popular political figure is former Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. National is brushing off their slump as midterm noise.
Polls bounce around a bit, they always do between elections. We're very focused on rebuilding the economy and restoring law and order and focusing.
You're not doing it very well, son. If you're very focused on rebuilding the economy, it's not going well. Has anyone told you?
On the issues that Kiwis want us to be focused on. Ultimately, Chris Hipkins is going to end up campaigning to be Prime Minister with Chloe Swarbrick, Rawiri Waititi, Debbie Narewa-Packer, and all of the crazies on the left side of the political spectrum. And I think ultimately...
Has he actually seen who's sitting around his cabinet table? The crazies he's talking about? I wonder if he's ever... Maybe it's in a dark room or something, and he can't see Nicole McKee and Brooke Van Velden and Winston Penis Police Peters. Maybe he doesn't see those guys around the cabinet table, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
There will be a very stark contrast at the 2026 election.
18 months out from that election, a warning for all parties.
There's no definitive data there that's showing a particular surge in one direction or the other, more an overall concern about the political situation and the economic situation. The numbers probably don't reflect a great strength for Labour. They reflect more a default position that people want to see more action to get back on track.
Because after all, get our country back on track was National slogan at the last election.
Craig Reaney. Oh, hello. I thought I pushed the thing. Hang on. Goodbye. Craig Reaney has been doing a podcast, and he did that speech in Christchurch last week, and one of the things he talked about was they're back on track, and he goes, are you feeling better off, New Zealand? It's like, well, that's true, actually. This is what they've promised. I mean, like, obviously we and many took the piss mercilessly out of back on track and, make America great again, but they haven't fulfilled their promise of getting New Zealand back on track. In fact, we're probably further off the track, truth be known. And it wasn't, we'll get New Zealand back on track if the world economy allows us, and it didn't have caveats to it. It was a bumper sticker. This is the downside of the bumper sticker. You've made the promise, you haven't fulfilled your promise. Chewie?
Yeah, like it's a nice, easy slogan. Like we've workshopped slogans before. Are we back on track enough yet? That's something that's going to come back and bite them. Do you feel better off?
Yeah.
On a big fucking billboard You know, do you feel better off than you did before the election? Does it feel like the adults are in the room? Does it feel like these economic policies are working? Is your grocery bill lower? You know, is your childcare costs lower? No, because they're not good at this. So vote for me. I also noticed that Bish's list of crazies were all Māori.
Yeah. I'm also interested in what they said about Jacinda, because I didn't see that on the 3 News story. I've got the Stuff article here about what's going on. There's the preferred Prime Minister, 43 to 37. And then just down here, former Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern remains the most popular political figure with a net favourability of plus 12.
No, she divided the country right down the middle. Half of us hated her and half of us loved her. And the point was that she's gone now. We drove her away.
Hipkins' favourability.
So how can that be true?
Hipkins' favourability climbed 5 points since November, while Luxon's has slipped to a net rating of negative 18.
Oh, look,
so Jacinda Ardern is plus 30 to Christopher Luxon.
What I'd like to say to you, Pat, is that I'm laser focused on getting my favourability stats up again, and we're working very, very hard to that. But Labor keep on taking away my favourability stats.
Anyone else think Barbara Edmonds could be PM? Yeah, I mean, I think Barb's great, and I think that her fiscal background makes her a very strong candidate. Look, I actually think, to make sure people didn't take this the wrong way, I think there's a place for Chippy as well. Depends what they want to do. Like if you think about the team, you know, I'm sorry, Chewie, but I'm talking sports ball for a second. You know, a team full of halfbacks would never get anywhere in a rugby game. You know, a team full of chippies would never get anywhere either. But if they've got the chippy, I mean, like, let's just say it, being the more centristy type person, and you've got the Karens being the bulldogs and calling themselves, did he call himself a Marxist or a communist? I can't remember. Which was it?
Socialist. Very proud socialist.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So as much as we take the piss out of the middle management around Luxon, there is an element of football manager that you don't have to play the game as well as your players on the field, as long as you can organise them well, that a Prime Minister could do. What you just see in Luxon is he's not a good manager. Neither is he a good Prime Minister. In fact, he's got rebellious people that are realising that they need to actually fight against him in about 6 months from now, and they're laying the groundwork for that as we speak. Because ACT is not going to go quietly. They're going to want to take as many of those national voters as they can, as is New Zealand First. You know, this could well be the last run for Winston Peters, or he might go one more time, and they will be after Luxon's blood. Put it this way. Think about the debate, the leaders' debate, including Luxon and Seymour and Winston Peters, when Seymour and Winston Peters want to take Luxon's voters. That could be a very interesting watch. Let's hope that these media outlets don't just do the two main leaders in the minor parties. Let's hope there's a proper one, because that could be fascinating to see Seymour let loose at Luxon, because he'll have to.
I am very happy to eat a big old plate of crow if Labor romps home with Chippy in the leadership, because the strategy that he told us was the correct one. Doesn't feel good, because I want a different thing. You know, I want a different version of Labor up there. I want the Greens and Te Pāti Māori to have a greater say. But hey, if it means that this coalition of cunts is out on their ass, then I will eat that humble pie and say that I was wrong.
And just remember, when that's what you're looking for, remember how much ACT and New Zealand First have gotten through of their policy. We're about to change, basically, we're not about to change. We possibly could change the whole way New Zealand does politics because of an ACT policy they're trying to push through with the Regulatory Standards Bill. That's the 8% party. You know, those minor parties can hold the feet to the fire of the larger partner if they play it right. Now, the left have never been good at that. The left have never been good at playing politics. I've said it before, and sorry again, Chewie, sports ball, but the left are very happy to play a good game but lose. the right will play the ugliest game they can. They'll break rules, they'll eye gouge, they'll do everything they can as long as they win. The left gets to the end and goes, oh, well, lads, you know, there was a few unlucky bounces of the ball there, but we did our best and we had a crack. And I'm just like, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
I mean, Bish just called them all crazy. So that's the new standard. Get Duncan Webb out there and start going, they're just full of shit. Or for fuck's sake, what are these cunts up to? Let Kieran off the chain.
Yeah, I think you'll probably see that. If you want the Greens or TPM to have a greater say, vote Greens or TPM. I think that's a pretty fair thing to say.
Green Party member here as of a few weeks back. And also I've only, like, as much as I bang on about, you know, I want Labour to succeed. I say that because they're the dominant party on the left. I've only ever voted for Labour once. The rest of the time, I have always said that I am a green voting Labour supporter. But I think so many elections have gone past that I just need to get comfortable saying that I am a green voter.
All right. Now, reminder that if you guys want a free T-shirt, you can head to bhnshop.nz and buy a hoodie. Till Friday midnight, any hoodie purchased on bhnshop.nz this week, you can also pick yourself a free T-shirt. One free T-shirt with one purchased hoodie, bhnshop.nz. That's it for me, though, Chewie. There's nothing else you need to go to. We good? I'm going to ask. I'm not going to ask you that. I'm just going to.
No tangent.
I'm just going to get out of here.
I'm just glad, Pat. No, carry on. Roll the titles. Roll the titles, Pat. Roll the titles.
Remember tomorrow, Craig Rennie, between 10:30 and 11, and also Tanya Waikato and her team at 7 p.m. If you haven't yet pushed whatever notification bell or button is on your platform, then do that now and you will be notified when we go live. 3 live streams tomorrow here on BHN.
Just going to say, Pat, you know, you got through the whole show without mentioning it's my birthday. That's fine. That's fine.
I did. Why do we not tell me what was your birthday?
No, shush. I don't.
Have you had a good one?
Yeah.
What you been doing?
Nothing. It's been great.
What are you doing for your birthday, Chewie?
I'm doing this podcast because today is my birthday.
I got a megaphone as well. How about me?
Oh, yours is fake.
No, it's real. It's a real one.
Chewie, I wish you a very happy birthday.
Thank you, Satan.
And I hope that you get everything you desire. Okay?
Okay. Don't like it.
Are you okay?
Do you want some more? Do you want some more?
Chewie! Oh, I've left the stuff on. Now I don't know what I'm doing.
There it is. I think it's off now. There we go. It's off now.
So, like,
Happy
Chewie,
birthday.
could you please come to reception, please?
Chewie, could you please come to reception, please? Chewie in the house.
You've left
Please
the
come to
lights on your
reception.
car.
Hope you had a good birthday. And we might see you on Saturday night. Hey. All right, team. All the best. Have a good one. And everyone sending good wishes to Chewie for his birthday. Do it now. You've got seconds. There we go. See? Happy Chewie Day. Yep. See? Happy birthday, Mr. President. Not sure what that means. Happy birthday. And then, of course, I know this. This is Chewie's best present. Do a submission for the regulatory standards.
That's
bill.
true, actually.
That'd be the best present ever?
Yep.
All right.
Do that.
All right, team. We are here 3 times tomorrow. 10:45 a.m., 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. We'll catch you in all 3 of those, please. Your attendance is required. Happy birthday, Chewie. And we will see the rest of you tomorrow night with us 2 from 9, and then with Tanya from 7, and then with Craig at about 11 a.m. Be safe. Be well. Hooroo!
Cheers, fam.
feels so good.